Okay, Sudie, that's Callaway, Garner, and I was born in Union Parish, Louisiana, on May the 7th, 1926. I don't know what to say with my earliest memory. I guess just the fact that we would have a big old farm to look at the cows and things like that. I can't really nail down any specific, but we did have a lot of horses and, big old farm. And I just had access to see all the things that you would have on a big old farm. Of course, my mother and daddy, and then my daddy had a sister, Vanessa, and I had been named after her, and so she came a lot and spoiled me with a lot of gifts. And so there were just a lot of the friends like that, close by, the neighbors, and that I can't really just think of a lot of unusual. They were all real special. Oh, they were very much churchgoers from the time I can remember. We always went to church and rode on the back of an old truck, but it was just fun, We had kids in blankets and everything, and we went to church. And because, see, Mama was a church organist or pianist, and Papa was a whatever deacon or whatever you called him. So we were at church a lot, Sundays and Wednesday nights and on and on. So my life with church was just begun as a normal thing. Well, we were just 1 dozen. You want to hear all 12 of us?
Yeah.
Okay, Chlorine, Sally, Allie. Now, these were twins. Sally and Allie were twins. Clarence, Leola, Sudie, Victor, Billy Ray, Martha Jean, Joanne, Wayne, and Elaine, twins. 2 sets of twins. Well, probably the best one was when they told me not to talk so much, but I don't want to tell that one. Oh, the best real advice was like my mother and daddy would say, now, you chaps behave. We'd be going out on dates. My sister just 2 years older, and we would be about to leave on a date. Now, you chaps behave. That was the way it was. And we understood exactly what they meant. I was working in Texarkana, and the government was wanting people to work at that, I don't know what you call it, but it was a whole unit of government places there. And I could type because I'd learned typing as a high school. And so they hired me immediately that day as a clerk typist. And I would be typing all kinds of things to send this for the guys overseas. It was, some wartime stuff. It was real interesting. Being on time. That when they say come to work at 8 o'clock, they mean 8, not 8:30. Do you have to remind me that I'm an old lady? I guess when I first remember hearing about the airplanes, they would fly over our house, down in the farm country, and we would look at those airplanes and think, oh, that must be wonderful. Well, then I finally did get to get on an airplane, and as a missionary from our church, I went overseas, did several trips like that. And I always just loved being on those airplanes and see the oceans and everything, just at a distance, of course. Gee, do I have to answer that? I can't even think I can't think of one particular, unless it be the day that I got Jesus in my heart at about 17, 18. That was a very important day. And I'd been in church all my life, Wednesday night, Sunday, you name it. But I did not give my heart to Jesus until I was out working in the world. And that day I was really convicted when I heard that message. And I went forward and told the lady that I would like to have Jesus come into my heart. And she led me through the scriptures, and I knelt down there. We were in a school, it was during the wartime, we were in a school building for the church. And we just knelt down and I prayed. And after you do, it's just such peace and such joy. And knowing that He's in control and you are not anymore because He's your master. But it's a good master, it's not a burden. So I don't know any other word except it's just a joyful, delightful adventure. And I recommend it to everybody. If you don't know Jesus, just ask Him to come in, and you know what? He will. we would hear people come through and they would say, I'm a missionary to so-and-so, and, you know, give a little talk at our church. And I thought, my goodness, that must be really something to go that far, because I'd never been off the farm. And they would say, we came from so-and-so and we're here to tell you about Jesus. I think that would have been the first little inkling, but it just kind of grew as I got older and would hear about different things and see it, you know, you could hear on the radio about some people starving to death in some place. And I began to think, oh, I wonder if I could go and help the situation. But you know, so there's funny, so there are 3 or 4 or 5, maybe 10 of them that are just special to me all the time. But I believe that if I really, really had to, if you said you was going to send me outside, if I didn't answer it, I think I would say Proverbs 3, 5, and 6. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Don't lean to your own understanding, but in all your ways acknowledge Him, and He will direct your paths. I just love that, because that really is true. Sometimes it's hard to do, though, to acknowledge that you need Him. Well, listen, I just want to say one thing. Don't any of you ever fail to let the Lord Jesus Christ come into your heart whenever He wants to. When He knocks, let Him come in. And in growing up, and any of your children, be sure that you encourage them when they're in those kind of modes of wondering and asking questions about how do you come to know Jesus. Jesus really is the only way, the only truth, and the only life, and that no person comes to the Father except through Jesus. So I guess that's about all I know to say about that sort of thing. And I thank y'all for letting me share all these little memories and tidbits.